Every morning just after sunrise, an old man walked slowly along the edge of a dusty country road. In one hand, he carried a small shovel. In the other, a cloth bag filled with tiny tree saplings. The people in the village had grown used to seeing him. Some smiled politely. Others simply shook their heads. One morning, a young man stopped his bicycle and asked, "Sir, why do you keep planting trees?" The old man smiled without stopping his work. "Because one day they'll give shade." The young man laughed. "But you'll never live long enough to sit under them." The old man looked at the tiny tree he had just placed into the ground. "I know." "Then what's the point?" For a moment, the old man remained silent. Then he gently pressed the soil around the little tree. "When I was your age," he said softly, "I rested under trees that someone else planted. I never met those people, but every summer they made my life better." The young man had no answer. He shrugged his shoulders and rode away, day after day, week after week. The old man continued planting, sometimes one tree, sometimes 5, sometimes only one small sapling because his back hurt too much. The seasons changed. Spring became summer. Summer became autumn. Autumn became winter. Yet every time the ground allowed it, he returned with another young tree. Many people still didn't understand. Children, however, became curious. One little girl often watched him from across the road. One afternoon, she finally gathered the courage to ask, "Grandpa, aren't you tired?" He smiled. "Very." "Then why don't you stay home?" The old man chuckled. "Because these trees are still waiting for me." She looked at the small sapling in his hands. "But you'll be very old when they're big." "I probably won't be here anymore." The little girl frowned. "Doesn't that make you sad?" The old man looked toward the open fields stretching into the distance. "No. It makes me grateful." She tilted her head. "For what?" "For having the chance to leave something beautiful behind." The little girl smiled. The next morning she appeared with a tiny watering can. "I came to help." The old man's eyes filled with tears. Together they planted tree after tree. Soon other children joined them, then their parents. Little by little, what had once been an empty road began to change. Years passed. The old man grew weaker. One winter he planted his final tree. As he stood up, leaning heavily on his shovel, he quietly whispered, "Take good care of this one." A few weeks later, the village bells rang. The old man was gone. For the first time in years, the road felt empty, but the trees remained. They kept growing. 1 year became 5. 5 became 10. Their branches stretched toward the sky. Birds built nests among the leaves. Families gathered beneath the shade during hot summers. Children laughed where there had once been nothing but dry soil. One afternoon, a little boy asked his mother, "Who planted all these beautiful trees?" She pointed toward an old wooden bench near the road. "There was once a man who believed that not everything we do has to benefit us. He planted them for people he would never meet." The little boy looked around at the cool shade surrounding him. Then he quietly whispered, "I wish I could thank him." His mother smiled. "You can." "How?" She handed him a tiny tree sapling. "Plant one for someone else." The boy carefully dug a small hole beside the path. As he covered the roots with soil, he smiled. Without realizing it, the old man's kindness had continued growing, just like the trees. Some people measure a life by the money they leave behind, others by the houses they build or the success they achieve. But sometimes, the greatest legacy is something much quieter. a tree whose shade you will never enjoy, a kindness you'll never see returned, a seed planted for someone you'll never meet. Because the most beautiful things we leave behind are often the ones that were never meant for us.